Nigerians continue to
Tonight, the city of Lagos
There is still a poor level of
Be the first to know from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
one Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News,
Welcome to Core
a
TV.
24-hour news station.
The CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, yesterday opened a new chapter in its history as the new CBN Governor, Dr. Godwin Emefiele, officially took over the mantle of leadership. And you recall that that's after the suspension of the embattled Lamido Sanusi Lamido. And since February 20, it's been Dr. Sarah Alade that has been acting as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, Sanusi was suspended by President Jonathan in February over allegations of financial recklessness and what many commentators believed was politically motivated, because that came after he, many people call that whistleblowing, after he said that certain amount of the oil revenue has not been remitted to the Federation account. Now, unfortunately, too, the amount moved away from 40-something billion naira, or dollars rather, to $12 billion, and then finally arriving at $20 billion. But as we speak right now, there's a new CBN governor. Now, how all of these affects the financial sector in Nigeria is our thrust of discussion on Core Digest today, your ultimate news and current affairs program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye, and thank you for staying with us. Let's quickly find out who this Godwin Emefiele is. Now, don't forget that he will be at the driver's seat of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Of course, he already started that yesterday. A brief spotlight on him and his achievements thus far. Not much is known about the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, former now, of the Zenith Bank PLC, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, who was nominated by President Goodluck Jonathan to succeed Mr. Sanusi as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, possibly because of his little public profile. But Emefiele is an economic and finance professional with experience in banking and academics. His calm demeanor bodes well for the role of an economic manager and bank regulator, according to some analysts. His nomination came few hours after the presidency announced the suspension of Sanusi as the CBN governor and appointed Mrs. Sarah Alade, deputy governor at the Central Bank, as the acting governor. Emefiele graduated as the best student in the Masters of Business Administration Finance program from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, having earlier obtained a second-class upper degree in banking and finance from the same institution in 1984. He deepened his knowledge of macroeconomics at the Oxford University and his qualifications in negotiation, strategy, leadership, critical thinking, and delivering value profit from the Harvard University, of course, as well from the Stanford University and University of Pennsylvania. Emefiele joined Zenith Bank at its inception and was appointed Deputy Managing Director in 2001. Prior to this appointment, he was the bank's executive director in charge of corporate banking, treasury, financial control, and strategic planning. He has over 23 years of banking experience and became the group managing director and chief executive officer on August 1st, 2010. The bank became the first in the industry to record a whopping 100 billion naira after-tax profit in a financial year in 2012. Emefiele is said to be an expert in forecasting and leverages on his equity and calculated risk-taking skills to crystallize any benefits from existing and future opportunities. According to some analysts, Emefiele's achievements at Zenith Bank since he took over stand him out as an accomplished banker and manager of human and material resources. And it's obvious that we're having a non-central banker taking over the affairs of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as against expectations that probably one of the deputy governors would take over. Before he came into banking, he was a lecturer at the UNN and the University of Port Harcourt, where he taught finance, bank management, and insurance. Currently, Zenith is rated the largest bank in Nigeria and the 7th largest in Africa by Tier 1 Capital, Forbes, and CNBC African ranking. And he was the 3rd biggest company in West Africa. Now, the big question is, how can all of this put together impact on the real-time economics of Nigeria? Now, you recall that recently Nigeria based its economy, and that made us as a nation the largest economy in Africa. Now, that of course has been well criticized as we begin to ask questions of the lifestyle, the standard of living of the average Nigerian, the 26th largest economy in the world, and many believe that most of its citizens are still living below $1 per day. Now, how those responsibilities will respond, so to speak, in the positive light to Nigerians is the questions on the lips of many as we begin to count down to a general election in 2015. I'm joined now by a business editor of BIMBO, FAGADE. Good morning, BIMBO.
Good morning, Ifemi. How are you doing?
I am terrific. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm very well.
Now, thank God you're a lady. I love that. Many have asked the question that how did Nigeria become the largest economy in Africa without women knowing? What has happened thus far to the price of food commodities in the market? The sudden promotion of Nigeria in the economic cadres, did you see it reflect in the market?
Okay, first I would like to say, looking at the population of Nigerians, you know, we have over 170 million people in Nigeria, and aside that, you know, we get to see a whole lot of people out there with what, should I say, they're not looking at, despite what they say we are worth. That's talking in terms of the gross domestic product right now, you know, as compared to that of South Africa. And you know, you go to places. You could look at South Africa. You could look at the class of technology they have right now. Should we say, can Nigeria be compared to such? Do we have a chance? Do we look like it's going to happen anytime soon, like in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? You know, and yeah, looking at some statistics they also sent, you know, saying things like we have an average Nigerian lives on an approximate of about $2 per day. The truth really is, who can you, for instance, walk into an eatery and say, okay, I can afford to buy food of 1,000 naira, and you won't go like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? So many things actually have to rub off on Nigerians. If you say we have a very fantastic gross domestic product index, you know, showing that yes, we're doing great. We're being rated as, you know, ahead of South Africa. It should be able to rub off on Nigerians. It should be able to rub off on the things we do. It should be able to rub off on the economy. So, talking about the food stuff, right now, due to the surgencies of things happening in the northern part, there's been analysis that a little shift of what is happening right now comes like about 100 kilometers towards the south. Okay. It might probably affect our food baskets in the country. Now, what are we doing to all those things? For instance, tomato basket goes for like about 4,000, 5,000. If we're not careful, we're going to go to like about 12,000 naira per basket. We look at yams today. The yam, you could go about 300 for one. You've been asked to bring like about 700, 800 naira. And of course, it's not the really fresh type of yam. So a whole lot of things are really going up the scale. And we're saying, now let's start looking inwards. Let's start looking at things we could produce locally. things that could work well here towards the south, you know, southwest, and you know, so we could be able to have like a balance, you know.
Okay, so that we won't have to depend largely on the northern part of Nigeria
yes,
for food.
Yeah, because of the challenges they're facing right now.
In a nutshell, you're saying that women in the kitchen are not feeling Nigeria being the largest economy.
We're not feeling it.
Africa.
We're not feeling. I'm speaking for the woman right now. Yeah, we're not feeling it because you want to go to the market. You're thinking of what your budget's going to look like. You have a different budget you're working with. You get to the market, you have a different price, you know, variation, and you go like, oh, I'm not prepared for this. So you have to work with what is available to you at the market, because you're not prepared for it. So we're saying, what's the government doing to this? How can you help us have a stability in form of, you know, not only the food right now, but for everyone to be able to have, like, at least have, let an average Nigerian be able to say, oh, what, I love my country, I'll do anything for my country, you know. And,
well, since let me take you on as a spokeswoman for Nigerian women, just for a moment.
Okay.
How has all of that impacted on our family? You know, the man, you know, in the typical African home drops some money for the woman to go and buy something. How has the hike in the price of food commodities affected the quality of our family lives in Nigeria?
Okay, I will say it has greatly, yes. I mean, affected quite a lot of things in the house. But, you know, sometimes they tell you it's actually a woman that makes the home. The way you want to make it depends on you. If you want to make it sweet, it's all up to you. So if you're given a certain amount of money to work with, you know, you do not have a choice but to work around the figure to make sure that at least every bit of, you know, you really have to start cutting down on some certain things. For instance, if you're going to say, I'm going to take a pack of, let's say, conflicts, for instance, and you have like about 12 packs there. And now, because of the hike in price, you still need those conflicts in the house because all of the children, because you need to keep the home running. You probably have to work with just half of the pack, or, God help you, a quarter.
And that's where the wisdom of the woman comes in now.
Exactly. So you have to really work around those things. In fact, every woman at this point has become an accountant. Everybody at this point right now is calculating. Before you work to the market, you're saying, okay, I can buy more than, you know, you have a script you're actually working with. So it's you know, like I say, God help us all.
Let's get back to the Central Bank of Nigeria. A new chapter being opened in the history of CBN. But let's look at the man at the center, Godwin Emefiele. I read a little bit about him earlier, and he graduated as the best student in the Masters of Business Administration Finance program from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, having earlier obtained a second-class upper degree in banking and finance from the same institution in 1984. And he has over 223 years of banking experience and became the Group Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Zenith Bank, August 1st, 2010. There's been this relationship between the quality of life we experience as Nigerians and the quality of leadership that we have. Do you see this man filling up that shoe and bringing to bear, fulfilling promises that have been made thus far by the federal government?
Okay, first it starts with, I rather will say we have quite a number of histories of top-notch people that we have right then. You know, they're actually really the country at the moment with different kind of CVs, if you understand what I mean. You know, I want to believe that for him to have risen to the point where he's at the moment, his pedigree has actually paved the way for him. I want to believe also that sometimes they say the education don't make you, but what a man has on the inside of him. You know, of course, you also need education at some point to be able to create a form of balance, you know, in the workplace, at home, and, you know, and all that. I'd rather say, yes, with what he has, with his achievements so far, I think he has the right capacity to run the bank, to run the apex bank of the country. With experience, yes, with experience in banking and all that, yes, it should be able to do absolutely well.
The big challenge everywhere, even in governance now, it's about consistency, carrying on policies that have, you know, hitherto worked. Unfortunately, that's not a reflection of governance in Nigeria. The moment you have a change in leadership, then there's an absolute change in the structures that were on ground. How would you advise that this new leadership follow suit with those policies that worked under the erstwhile CBN governor?
Okay, well, he nearly assumed office yesterday. And of course, a whole lot of things will actually be expected of him. First, I'll say it's better he works more with price stability.
Okay.
We have a whole lot of that happening. We don't really have a stable, we don't really have a stable price we work with. If you look at the external reserve of Nigeria at the moment, it's dwindling, which is really not too good for us. Because we have so many reasons why we have to, have these external reserves. We need to have them to help us at the moment when we can afford to source for funds from other countries. With our external reserve, we're able to buy some things, bring in some things to our side. So price stability should be his main focus. Also looking at this cashless policy thing, everybody's saying we're going to go cashless. Yes, cashless is beautiful. I think I like it at this point when I have to go somewhere and I don't have to go back to a bulky cash. I could give you my ATM to work with. You could swipe, and that's the end of transaction, But I know this is also a big issue, which is the turnaround time in most banking halls.
Okay.
For me, I kind of feel this also you will need to look into, because if you don't want to see the long queue at ATMs right now, you don't want to see the number of hours you have to sit in the banking hall right now. We look at a dollar rate to Naira, So we're saying, can you help us peg? We're not saying take us back to 130 Naira per dollar. We're saying, okay, if you can work with about 155 to 150 per dollar, as against 162.50 kobo or 162.80 kobo that we're presently doing. So we need to have something that can that can position us as a country that, of course, we can live up to what we say and we can live up to what we do.
But one would expect that the cashless policy you made mention earlier would extend from just using the ATM to being able to transact business like buying tomato in the market. How feasible is that in current day Nigeria?
Okay, for me, I strongly believe that there's some things that can be learned and there's some things that can be taught. An average, I've actually had cause to walk up to a supposed woman. I kind of thought she was an illiterate, in quotes, and I was surprised what she could do with her ATM, and I'm like, sorry, do you know how to use it? What's it? She reads my PIN number. Once I punch the PIN number, that she'll be able to get. And I'm like, if a woman like this could put her acts together and say, oh, I know my PIN, I can use the ATM, then it's a moment of you needing, it's a moment of the government that needs now to go and sensitize the people, that, okay, at this point, you'll be needing this POS. But is it visible, like you said? Some people, it's going to be a very great challenge, and most people refuse change as well. So change is something I know is constant, but if we push it hard enough, we will not totally eradicate, but it will come to a point whereby it's reduced the barriers minimum that you have to go to the market with.
What exactly are the economic advantages that this cashless policy has over carrying cash in Nigeria?
A whole lot. For me, it has to do with your security. Just about 2 days ago, I heard in the news about a guy who left the bank. He had some cash in his Mercedes-Benz, and he was killed. And they went away with the car, as well as the money he went to draw. Now, the question now is, for whatever transaction you wanted to do, why didn't you go ahead and do it online? Why didn't you go ahead and, keep yourself safe from the harm, from people watching, because you actually don't know who's watching. You don't know who has what details and where they're going to come from. So we're saying protect yourself. Protect yourself or your loved ones. Make sure you do your transactions effortlessly, save a whole lot of time. That is, save yourself from going to the bank, queuing up, telling your account officer to sign this or sign that. Do whatever you need to do via email. And that's why, thank God, right now ICT is taking over, and we're saying leverage on ICT, leverage on the internet purpose, learn how to use all those things, and it could save you a whole lot of time and security.
Godwin Emefiele,
Yes.
there's been much talk about the selection of a non-central banker to head the central bank government. One would expect that one of the deputy governors who are well acquainted with the process and procedures of the central bank governor, the central bank in itself, they've been there for a while, they know how it runs. Now, many Nigerians are thinking about results. One of the failures of the boss of Manchester United, many believe, was the fact that he could not work with the people, on the background, the people who are not under the spotlight. What do you think? How do you think this will influence operations at the central bank? The Zenith Bank CEO, who has not been in this system, has been a banker all his life and a lecturer. Do you see these in any way impacting on his performance as a CBN governor?
Okay, I would say yes, it will, because it's coming from a banking world. Now we're saying, take up this new challenge. It's bigger than you are. It's bigger than Zenith Bank. We say, take up the hands, the hem of affair of the country. Take up our money, the country's money, and, keep it well. It might take a while for him to stabilize. It might take a while for him to really get a grip on his new role. But he definitely will get there, because we're not saying he's just had a year experience in banking. We're not saying he's just finished from a business school. That's, how to put it now. He just finished from a business school, and we're saying, oh, from there, just move on to he's bringing in his verse of experience over the years, his wealth of experience, is bringing it in here. And we're going to expect a lot more from him. There are a whole lot of investors right now looking up to him, because investors want to come into the country assured that when we come with our money, everything will go well, and we can have a money triple. Everybody want to go into business, everybody invest because of the profits. So they want to say, okay, if you bring in this guy, let this guy come because you believe he's fit for this. So, let's allow him do this, and we can have a good return on investment.
The independence, or perhaps what many will call, independence of the Central Bank of Nigeria has been, a topic of discussion for a while. The fact that the CBN governor doubles as an advisor and the account officer of the president. And many believe that that makes him a part of the executive branch of the federal government. Now, the non-partisanship of the CBN governor, the independence of the CBN governor, how do all of that work when the head, of course, is an accountant general for Mr. President?
I'd rather say, to whom much is given, much is actually expected. If you're going to assume a certain role, I want to believe there's some certain job functions that you're expected to work with. Yes, the independence might not totally be there, because he's expected to also work with the president, so he could know what's happening at every point in time. He could know what's happening to our reserves, to the interest rates of lending, to inflation rates, to so many things. So he needs to, at every point in time, be there to advise the president that, sir, because of certain reason, we might not be able to take up certain, possibly importation of crude oil and all that. He should be there to advise. I'm talking about his role as an accountant. Yes, that's why it's there, to be able to know the figures. Because with the figures, he can plan. With the figures, he can say, oh, this is where we stand in terms of, of what the country owns in terms of money and all that.
One of the deputy governors, Kingsley Mogali, speaking at the sidelines of African CEO Forum in Geneva, talked about the lessons drawn from the suspension of the CBN governor. And he says that there is a very thin line between the central bank independence and political posturing. The governor began to make very damaging public allegations against Mr. President and his government, allegations that have not been proven after the president has sent him a presidential query. What's that thin line between the independence of the CBN and the political role of a CBN governor?
Okay, what I think I can take out of that is, just like you said, the independence of who the CBN governor should be. At this point, they're saying, allow him do his job without pulling him into the political arena. Let him handle the affairs of the money. Don't tell him to, when it's time for election, don't tell him to open up his wallet and bring out the money for campaign. Don't tell him, oh, because we want to run a presidency election and all that, or we need to feed some certain people and all that within the cabinet, you should bring a certain X amount of money. So they're saying, allow him to run the office the way it should be, and don't put him, under the political umbrella of, the normal thing is my boy. Let him bring it.
There's been lots of political coloration to the suspension of Sanusi.
Absolutely.
That okay, he was a whistleblower, and he talks about certain funds that were not remitted to the Federation account, oil money and all of that. How conservative should a CBN governor be in blowing whistles, so to speak?
I strongly believe that when we talk about blowing whistles, it happens everywhere.
Is that a responsibility of a CBN governor?
Is that the responsibility of a CBN governor? No. Because I strongly believe that you signed a confidentiality agreement when you decided to take up the offer. And if you have to leave, it's better you leave honorably. Sometimes, yes, there's some things beyond you, which sometimes you need to address with the cabinet, with the House, with whoever is in charge, reach a considerable, sense of agreement, and look for the way forward, And for me, I kind of feel that, yes, at that point, it's gotten to a point whereby what he did thought was justifiable because Nigerians were talking, Nigerians were screaming, where's our money going to? We needed answers. We needed to know that at this point, this is where our money is going and this is how it's working for us. I want to say, when he did what he did at that point, everybody, yes, that was brave. But when people started hearing about the allegations that came up afterwards, I know a whole lot of people were quite shocked that, oh, after all, he wasn't a saint. He also played a part in what we call this financial recklessness of a thing.
Okay, all of that are still allegations, I suppose.
They are, yes, they are.
Of course, though, the Senate says that the Senate committee sitting on this recently branded him a liar as regards what they call the 20 billion naira fraud in the oil sector in Nigeria. We'd love to hear from you. All you need to do is like our Facebook page and drop your comments there. It's www.facebook.com/CoreTV News, as well as on Twitter. Let's find out what your opinions are at CoreTV News NG, and get to watch previous and current editions of Core Digest on YouTube. It's youtube.com/CoreTV. Live space and news. We'll take a short break now and we'll be back with you. Don't go away.
Nigerians continue to
Tonight, the city of Lagos waits and
still
dark
a poor
as all
level of
routes
to you on
Be the first to know
on Core TV News.
from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa.
Federal High
We
Court.
break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News,
Welcome to Core
a
TV.
24-hour news station.